I'm about to turn 22 in just a few days, and I think that this is a perfect time to look back on kung ano nga ba yung pinagagawa ko this past few years and share with you the lessons that I've kind of gathered from reading books, watching videos. And without further ado, let's go to lesson one. The first lesson is that life is not black and white. So most people label everything in dichotomy. It's either you're right or you're wrong, good or bad, happy or sad. But I think that life is more fluid or flexible and harder to categorize. The first time that I became fond of the color gray was when I first heard of the word gray area. According to Google, gray area is an ill-defined situation or field not readily conforming to a category or an existing set of rules. In adulting, one of the main things I struggled with was making the right decisions kasi I'm always afraid of like choosing this one and then regretting it. But I realized a lot of things in our life is arbitrary or gawa-gawa lang. So the best choice is the choice that is aligned with your values and what you want and what you need. I say do whatever floats your boat as long as you're trying to avoid harming anyone else. Oh, aside from the ego of your chismosang kapitbahay. In a lot of areas in our life, we often think that something will have more impact than it will actually have. And this is one of the idea behind the impact bias. We often over or underestimate the effect and the duration of something, especially if it's negative. If you're someone like me, you probably thought na kapag nabuntis ako na maaga, wala na akong, or sira na yung buhay ko, na kapag na-disabled ako, hindi na ako makaka-recover, na kapag nakakuha ko ng isang bagsak na grade na hindi na ako magiging successful sa buhay. Or, in the flip side, you probably think na kapag nakahanap ka ng ideal partner mo, magiging masaya na yung buhay mo, or if manalo ka ng loto, solve ka na for the rest of your life. But the thing is, everything in our life is temporary. You can be a millionaire or a billionaire right now and be broke the next month or the next year. Or you can be a sore loser right now and be a hot cold dude the next few months. And you know, the things that we think will make us happy in the long run are, like I said, temporary things. There are studies that shows that no matter how perfect our partner is, the chemicals that are present during the honeymoon phase eventually wears out. My point here for the next lesson is that not to have something or that one thing to be your be all and end all, but to see them as part of like a piece of a larger picture. Which brings me to the next lesson, which is don't chase emotions or specifically happiness. Like I said, everything is temporary and we are not good like estimators or predictors of our own future. We might think that something will make us happy and it will turn out na hindi pala, or ibang klaseng hindi siya yung kind of happiness that we are actually kind of looking for. And so instead of chasing happiness, I think the best way to approach it is to, when it happens, to savor the good emotions. And the cool thing about emotions is that we can actually control it. We can amplify the good ones and then cool off the bad ones so that we can analyze them and realize why we felt them. Well, while it may not come naturally for most of us, we can actually train our emotions. We can be calm even if we're in a really dire situations, and we can find happiness even in the smallest of things. Then the next thing is being right doesn't always feel good. I know it's tempting to prove someone wrong, especially if you have the evidences and you know you're right. But sadly, not all people operate in a logical way, and more often than not, people are driven by their emotions. And not because you are right, people will automatically agree with you. Even if you show them multiple research papers and waste your time and effort to explain, humans will believe what they want to believe. It may feel disheartening, disappointing, and frustrating to the point that you want to sever ties with that person, but sometimes it will be difficult, especially if that person is a relative or a boss from a job that you really need. In my experience, my tendency was to compromise and silence myself because I was afraid of saying the wrong things or hurting the other person. But then I read somewhere, and this was actually kind of helpful for me, that you can actually say anything to anyone as long as you do it with respect and understanding. And if you can, add some bits of humor. Now, if that doesn't still work, this is the time where you have to weigh which is more beneficial or important for you. Like being right or may makakain ka pa the next few days. Now, the fifth lesson is to always have a backup plan or socket. For example, if you want to change career, some people do this. They would resign from their main job and then have no savings, no emergency fund, and then pursue their dream careers. But the problem with this is, what if it doesn't work out? So I think that if you're wanting to change careers, or if you're wanting to do two things, test the water first. Try doing both at the same time and gradually transition. Say you want to have a more flexible lifestyle where you can work anywhere and anytime. Before you resign, find that job first. And once you find the job, see how it goes, and then see if that's really something you want to do and if it's sustainable. And if so, I think that's the only time that you can quit your current job. In this way, it will be kind of more smoother and less riskier for you. Parang sa pag-edit lang yun ng videos, you have to put transition effects para mas smoother yung transitions. The next thing is, don't hold on to it. I grew up with a lot of hate, and my condition was, if you will not change, then I will not forgive you. And it's easier to hate, even if it makes you more miserable. After all, how can you forgive someone that doesn't apologize and doesn't even show a hint of remorse and continues to drag you down? And then one day, our program coordinator invited me to this seminar, which I think at first was really cringe. It's one of those seminars where they will ask you to put what you feel on a paper and then punitin mo. Then tada, mawala na yan. At first, I can't wrap my head around it. I thought it's bullshit. It's like saying to someone sad na, don't be sad, be happy. Like, tada! It's just with extra steps. At first, of course, because I did not understand the underlying principle behind it, it did not work. But bear with me on this, because later on, through my readings, I've come to understand what I can learn from that session. One of those is this: there are things that you can and cannot control. And normally, we can only control our emotions and behaviors and not the actions of others. But of course, this is not always true. Kaya nga may mga manipulators, gaslighters, and scammers. And there's a related piece to this that I want to focus on. And that is, when we react to everything someone say or do, not only are we unable to control ourselves, but we are giving that power to them. And for some reason, this kind of helped me let go of things. Kasi in my head, like, I don't want to be controlled. I have control of my own self. I'm letting this go. Siguro, nagkaroon ng mas impact yun sa akin if she said na after or during writing our emotions, to process them and analyze them and see why we felt them. For example, was our values trampled, or was any of our boundaries crossed? How we can better approach it? Why was the reason why we have to let it go instead of communicating it to someone? I will not ask you to make or to do the same exercise, but I will leave you in one thing, that to not let anyone else control you.